You were one of the few to make football fun again. What I mean by that is that there was a period of time where I think most content, it's fair to say, was geared towards controversy and conflict. Do you want to know why the Halcyon show is called the Halcyon show? Direct protest to that. I want to go back to a time where things have a sense of peace, calm, and serenity, and are taken from a considered perspective. That's the whole point of the name. But that was in a time where things were just starting to get cranked up on YouTube. A lot of university students were watching a lot of content generated by things like FIFA and COD and all the rest of that sort of stuff. And then once the sort of larger companies like Sky, like BT, like TalkSport, and all of these other guys start viewing YouTube through the prism of a younger audience, let's try and access them. Let's get some direct engagement with them. Then that really went past 11. And like I say, I remember the day when I got turned on to you guys. I was watching a Simon Jordan show, and I went, I can't take this anymore. This is just, it's been 3 days of every day. This is the worst thing that might have ever happened ever, and I'm including world wars in that assessment. And I need to, so let's have a nose around. And it was, there was a Super League video of yours that I made a direct comparison of the day I made my Super League video. And I remember because I stole basically all of your guys' ideas and none of his. Full disclosure, I basically stole all their ideas. I have no original opinions of my own. I plagiarize everything. Welcome to YouTube. Anyway, point being is that you managed to navigate the waters and identify that niche, and you've managed it so well to continue to grow, even though the channel's gone through a number of significant changes. You've gone through a load of significant changes. So tell me about what it's been like as sort of that independent, enterprise of, I have this idea, it's a good idea, it's got a lot of potential, through to now where that potential is starting to pay off, but now you need to start thinking about how to continue to generate momentum, because as we all know, stagnation is not the name of the game in YouTube. If you're not growing, the algorithm didn't like you. So how do you view those two times through the prism of how you sit now? How do you feel about how you started versus how you're doing now?
I mean, I know a lot more now, and there's loads more people that work here, which makes my life a lot easier. I think, the core values of it, and you'll have to forgive me for talking about it in that way, but Tifo's core values are still the same. We try to avoid, controversial and clickbait related content. We sort of flirt with the lines of that a little bit because we have to, but, in comparison to the majority of other things, it's night and day.
But you never hear JJ Bull begin a video with, so Manchester United beat Arsenal 3-1 today. But let's not talk about that. Let's instead talk about Rashford's house that he's bought. It's got 3 bedrooms and he's got a Lamborghini and it got signposted.
Well, yeah.
Have you seen his model? Let's check out his Instagram. He's still, sure. It's still the blokes talking about football essence. And I know you've brought in other individuals and it's not as narrow-minded as that, but there's still this, it's reminiscent of a community. It still has that feel. It still has that very welcoming, very unpretentious feel to it.
Well, that's good to hear. It's difficult to have a perspective of it.
It's your baby, of course.
Yeah, and it's like you don't always know what people think. I think the unpretentiousness. I think some people would argue that the illustrated videos are pretentious, but
really, why?
I think some people would, because I don't know. I think they're
because you pronounce your T's.
Maybe, yeah.
Come on now.
But I think that all of that, like the unpretentiousness of stuff, is intentional because it doesn't matter. I think one of the things I think about video on YouTube or online is that people think about it like TV. When like creative agencies or ad agencies make online video content or digital video content, they structure it and they program it and they think about it in the same way as TV, and it's not. Like one of the most interesting things about modern times, when everyone has a mobile phone in their pocket. I can't remember who it was that said this, but I think it was Adam Curtis, actually, who's a BBC sort of video essayist. And I may have misattributed it, but we'll pretend it was him anyway. He said that he famously makes films that are structured in a very confusing way, and they jump from one topic to another and back and forth, and maybe he'll tell 6 different stories all interwoven, which theoretically equal something at the end if you're paying attention. And an interviewer asked him about that, and he said the key is that the audience today are very used to just flicking through stuff on their phone. They're very used to jumping between different pieces of content, and often starting halfway through a conversation or leaving halfway through a conversation. And whilst maybe there's an argument to make that 30 years ago the audience for entertainment did not have necessarily the facility to be able to pick up a conversation halfway through and understand it, or instinctively understand the context of it in a way that people do now. They do now, because everyone's exposed to the internet, and lots of people, my age and slightly older, grew up with the internet and have a sort of instinctive understanding of when something is an advert, when it's not, what the context of something is, when something is a joke and when it's not. It's always interesting to read about court cases related to internet jokes, whether or not you agree with the telling of those jokes. It's always interesting to see the jokes then put into a very different context and discussed amongst a group of people who did not grow up with the internet and maybe don't have the necessary, and it's no fault of their own, it's just a generational thing, don't necessarily have the facility to instinctively understand whether something is meant humorously or not. I think there's a great deal of that's one thing I really love about the internet, is that everything doesn't have to be serious or funny. Most memes are serious and funny at the same time, and a certain subset of people, and it's related to age, understand that, and some people don't. And I think when people make football YouTube videos, to bring it back, a lot of the time people think about it like TV, when it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be at all. So I think having those sorts of conversations and thinking about easier to have, and it's the space is relatively empty on YouTube, to be honest, so it's quite easy to be different. I'm proud of the work that we've done, and I think everybody that works here is amazing. It's hopefully that would go without saying, but I think all the people that work at Tifo are incredible at their jobs. But to a certain extent, it's quite easy to stand out because there's sort of mostly one way of doing things, and then we just have a slightly different way, which is, it's not to say that it's better than other channels, it's just different, and it is honest to the people that work here. None of us would work in football video content if we had to do the thing that lots of the other mainstream media organizations have to do, because it doesn't suit our personalities. It's not how we would authentically engage with stuff. But because we have been able to make a success out of this, it's natural. Like I said, it's not better or worse than anything else. It's just different.
You say that it's not better or worse, but I think the better or worse argument is subjective only when it's not evident on the faces and in the performances of the people in the videos that they are loving every second of it. Now, I have a joke question here, which is, what is it like to be one of the only 3 people to have fun in Milton Keynes in the whole of history? And that's because, again, while you're making that video, it looked like you guys were having a ball. Now, whether or not you were actually enjoying, racing a professional, esports driver, or whether or not you liked being in Milton Keynes, for the record, I don't. But the fact that you guys have such a wonderful dynamic between you all, and there's such a lovely sense of fun about what you're doing, even when the time comes to sit down and have difficult conversations, the Super League videos weren't easy for you guys to navigate originally. Some of the heaviest stories that you have to navigate within the podcast aren't that easy, and I'm sure some of the games that you have to cover that you don't end up then putting into the podcast, and you're like, oh bugger, that's 0-0. I was really rather hoping there'd be something, but that must be frustrating at times. But there's a wonderful sense of fun that comes from your channel, and the fact that you've been able to channel that into a lot of different avenues, like the video series that you've produced. The Football Manager series with Ian was fantastic. I watched those videos millions of times. The Super League video with I'm Evan Leventhal. I've watched those a million times. Even some of the old podcasts, the Sensible Transfers, because they're not evergreen, but they serve as wonderful little time capsules of here's who was potential at this point. It's like going back and playing an old FIFA and going, oh wow, Zachary Bacardi was supposed to be a big deal by now. Oh no. And then you go like Erling Haaland, rated 65, potential of 69. Well, you might have gotten that one a bit wrong, haven't you? So